You have an idea, a real one. Not the kind you forget by morning, but the kind that follows you into the shower, interrupts your conversations, and sits at the back of every meeting you attend. You have the energy. You have the vision. You might even have the money. And then, somewhere between the launch and the moment things were supposed to click, the money is gone. The idea is still there. Sharper than ever, actually. But the runway has disappeared, and you are standing at the edge wondering what just happened. This is not a story about bad ideas. It is a story about how the human brain handles uncertainty, risk, and the seductive illusion of progress. And it is a story that plays out the same way, in the same order, for first-time founders all over the world, regardless of industry, regardless of background, regardless of how smart they are. Because the hidden reason most first-time founders run out of money has almost nothing to do with their idea. It has everything to do with what their brain does when it encounters the discomfort of not knowing whether that idea will work. Here is what actually happens. You start with money. Maybe it is your savings. Maybe it is a small raise from a friend or family member. Maybe it is a modest seed check. Whatever it is, it feels like a foundation. It feels like permission. And the moment you have it, your brain does something subtle and dangerous. It shifts from survival mode into building mode. The urgency that existed before the money arrived, the sharp focus that came from having nothing, quietly fades. You are no longer fighting for the idea. You are investing in it. And investing feels responsible. Investing feels like progress. Daniel Kahneman, the psychologist whose work on human decision-making earned him a Nobel Prize, identified a pattern he called the planning fallacy. Human beings consistently underestimate how long things will take, how much they will cost, and how many things will go wrong. And they do this not because they are careless, but because the brain is wired to imagine futures that feel like smoother versions of the present. When you plan a product launch, your brain pictures the path where everything works. It does not naturally model the version where your developer goes silent for 3 weeks, your first supplier falls through, and your early customers turn out to be nothing like the person you built for. So you build a plan. The plan feels solid. And then reality introduces itself. The first thing most first-time founders spend money on is not customer acquisition. It is not product development in the lean, fast, test and learn sense. It is identity, a logo, a website, a brand, business cards sometimes, a nice email domain. These things feel essential because they make the business feel real. And making the business feel real solves a psychological problem your brain has been sitting with since you first had the idea. The problem of legitimacy, of not yet being able to say with confidence that this is a real company. Sarah Blakely, who built Spanx from a few $1,000s into a billion-dollar business, famously resisted spending on branding and presentation in the early days. She wore the product herself to pitch meetings and focused every dollar on getting the thing in front of buyers who could actually say yes or no. But most first-time founders do the opposite. They spend on the things that feel like business before they have confirmed that they have a business at all. This is not laziness. It is neuroscience. The brain craves certainty. And in the absence of real market validation, which is uncomfortable and slow and full of rejection, it substitutes the certainty of visible progress. A logo is done. The website is live. The brand deck looks professional. Each of these completions triggers a small dopamine release, the feeling of moving forward, the feeling of building something. And that feeling is real, even when the underlying business has not yet been tested against a single real customer who was not your friend. Meanwhile, the clock on the runway is running. Noam Wasserman, a professor at Harvard Business School who spent over a decade studying founder behavior and early-stage company failure, found in his research that the majority of startup failures are not caused by bad products. They are caused by people problems and resource mismanagement in the early stages before product-market fit is established. Founders hire too early, build too much, spend on infrastructure before demand exists, and consistently mistake activity for progress. Activity feels like progress. That is the trap. Your brain cannot easily distinguish between the discomfort of doing hard, uncertain, unresolvable things, like talking to customers who tell you your idea needs work, and the discomfort of doing nothing. Both feel bad. But building a website feels productive. Iterating on your pitch deck feels productive. Setting up the accounting software, designing the packaging, writing the about page. All of it feels like work. And all of it can be done without ever confronting the one question that actually determines whether your business will survive. Does anyone want this enough to pay for it? That question is the most important question in any early-stage company. It is also the question that is hardest to ask because the answer might be no. And a no, early on, before you have spent the money, before you have built the team, before you have told everyone you know that you are doing this, is survivable. A no after 12 months and $60,000 is a different kind of pain entirely. Michael Seibel, a partner at Y Combinator, one of the most successful startup accelerators in the world, has said repeatedly that the #1 mistake he sees in early founders is building before talking to customers. Not just talking to validate what they already believe, but talking to genuinely understand whether the problem they are solving is a problem anyone actually loses sleep over. Most founders skip this step or rush through it because sitting with uncertainty is neurologically uncomfortable. The brain wants to build. Building is something it knows how to do. Understanding a market, sitting with ambiguous feedback, holding multiple contradictory hypotheses at once, that is cognitively expensive. That is work the brain actively tries to shortcut. So it shortcuts to execution. And execution without validation is just expensive guessing. There is another force at work underneath all of this. It is called optimism bias, and it is one of the most well-documented features of the human brain. Tali Sharot, a neuroscientist at University College London, has shown through years of research that human beings across cultures and demographics systematically overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes and underestimate the likelihood of negative ones. We believe our business will be the exception. We believe our launch will go better than average. We believe the customers are out there and will find us once the product is good enough. This is not arrogance. It is biology. The brain that could imagine a better future was the brain that kept moving forward in a world that was genuinely brutal. Optimism kept your ancestors alive. But optimism, unchecked by honest market feedback, keeps burning your runway while you wait for a future that may not arrive on the schedule you imagined. The founders who make it through are almost never the ones with the best ideas. They are the ones who get honest feedback the fastest, adjust the most cheaply, and preserve their resources for the moment when they actually know something real about their market. They treat every dollar as a question, not a statement. Every dollar spent is asking the market something, and the goal in the early days is to ask as many questions as possible, as cheaply as possible, before the money runs out. Because the money always runs out faster than the ideas. That is not a failure of imagination. That is a feature of building something new in a world that has not asked for it yet. The idea that is still with you right now, the one that followed you into this, that idea is not the problem. It never was. The problem is the invisible gap between having an idea and knowing whether the world will pay for it. That gap has killed more companies than bad timing, bad markets, and bad luck combined. And the only way across it is not to spend your way through it. It is to ask your way through it. Cheaply. Honestly. Before the runway disappears. You have an idea. A real one. The question has never been whether the idea is good enough. The question is whether you will find out the truth about it before the money does.